Hi everyone, Miss Wagner's here, and this is our next book in our KidzLit series. This week we're going to be reading Bunny Cakes, and it is by Rosemary Wells. But before we get ready with that book, what I'm going to do is to break this up into two videos and give you a couple of things to do before we read, just like we do when we're at school together, and then we will read the book the next time, so you can watch both videos in order to do the activities and then read the book as well. So the first thing I want you to think about is this book. You're going to hear a story about some challenges faced by an older sister and a younger brother. Have any of you had those things happen in your house where maybe the older brother or sister doesn't get along with the younger brother or sister? It happened in my house. I was daughter number 3, and so sometimes all of us girls did not get along, and so there were times that would happen. So when you have someone that is your brother or sister, another word for that is called sibling. It's sibling. So when you have a sibling, that means your brother or your sister. And so I want you to think about some questions to find out about the experiences from your older brothers and sisters. So here's some things that you might think about before we read this book, because it'll get us ready to be thinking about how we relate to each other in our household. So one question is, what's good about being older or being younger? And what's hard about that? So for example, for Miss Wagner, when I was daughter number 3, something that was great about being younger is that oftentimes whatever my sisters did, I just did what they did. I didn't have to really think about anything. When whatever they did, I just was like, oh, I'm going to do that too. Um, However, when we got older, my sisters were both very good at softball, and I really wasn't that good at softball. And so it made it hard to always be the person that wasn't good at something when your brothers or sisters are good at something. So that would be something that you would maybe want to talk about. What is good about being older? What is good about being younger? And what's hard about it? And share that with your family. That could be done at dinner time, or maybe after dinner, you could just sit down and visit about that. Another thing you could do is to think about, how do younger and older brothers and sisters treat one another? So you might kind of do a little conscience check on that and see, are we treating each other nicely, or are we maybe not treating each other nicely? And so if we aren't, let's talk about how that might look and maybe do a better job of that. So that's another question we could think about. How do grown-ups treat older siblings or younger siblings? Sometimes people say, I'm not a baby. Like, I can do it. I want to do it on my own. So sometimes our parents might not give you responsibilities because you're not quite old enough for that responsibility. So talk a little bit about why people are treated differently in your home if they're older or if they're younger. Another thing you could talk about, is it easier to be younger or is it easier to be older? And so all about siblings, it's called sibling scenes. And so talking about all the different scenes in your life that would work with your siblings. Now, there's a couple of cool words I want to point out to you for this book that you can look at. And this is going to be about bunny cake. So I think they're going to be doing something like, actually baking a cake. So you can see from some of the cool words, one of the cool words is grocer. Grocer is Grocer, and a grocer is someone that buys and sells food. So they buy the food and then they sell it to us. So a grocer would be someone that works in a grocery store. Another one would be thrilled. So when you're thrilled about something, you are delighted or very excited. So one of the things you could do is to talk to your parents about a time when you were thrilled, very excited about something. The other word that I want you to look at is iced. When we say that something is iced, ICED, we might think about it as being outside. Maybe the streets are icy. We might think they're iced. But in this particular book, when we say that something is iced, we're talking about putting frosting on a cake. So I don't know about you. When I go to a wedding and they have cake, sometimes there's so much frosting. It's just so sweet. So sometimes I like to take the frosting and then put like peanuts in them, and it kind of breaks up the sweetness. Or sometimes I just have to scrape some of the frosting off because it's just so sweet for Miss Wagner. So do you like frosting? Do you like an iced cake or an iced cookie? Or would you rather have it plain? That's a question that you could talk about with your family for this book. Okay, watch the next video and we'll read the story Bunny Cakes. See you then.